Hello, here we are with the connective tissue part of chapter 4, and we will continue. General features of connective tissue: they have two basic elements, cells and extracellular matrix. So unlike epithelial tissue, we will see a lot of almost open space in some of this connective tissue, so that is where you're going to see the extracellular matrix. It's kind of just the different substances that fill the void between the cells. They will not cover or line any surfaces in the body. They are for binding different parts of the body together. So when you talk about the skin, the underlying level is going to be the subcutaneous level. This is going to be what anchors the skin to the muscle or bone below. Okay, and then we will actually see a lot of blood vessels and nerve supply running through the connective tissue. This is so we can reach those areas that do not have a direct blood supply moving through them, such as the epithelial tissue. Okay, and except for tendon and cartilage, they do not have blood supply or blood vessels moving through that particular tissue. Here is a giant picture of all the different cells you can see in connective tissue. Take your time. I know this is going to be really good reading material for you whenever you're super bored. Alright, so that extracellular matrix, most of it is containing fibers and ground substance. So that tells you it's kind of just filling the void. Those fibers, though, we do have some particular types. We have collagen, elastic, and reticular. Collagen is going to be your very strong type of fiber, but it resists tension. But not so stiff it can't be flexible. The way I like to think of it, it's kind of like a climbing rope. It's attached at one end. You're climbing down a rock or climbing down a cliff face, and you can put an immense amount of tension on that rope, but it's very strong. But at the same time, if you need to move, it is flexible. Elastic fibers, on the other hand, you can think of like bungee cords. So we'll see these can be arranged in different ways, either in kind of like a network, so kind of webbed, or they can be more closely aligned and parallel. Okay, reticular fibers are going to be collagen fibers arranged in bundles. So this is going to arrange them in such a way that it creates kind of a network. And we'll see there are organs that are mostly consisting of these reticular fibers. So we have embryonic connective tissue and mature connective tissue. The two embryonic are mesenchyme and mucus. As you can see, mucus is going to be found in the umbilical cord and is supporting the growth of the fetus. After that, we don't see it anymore. Mesenchyme, on the other hand, we see it primarily in the embryo and the fetus for growth, and we are going to produce most of the other connective tissues from this embryonic type. The stem cells found in the body are going to be mesenchymal cells, and they will respond to injury and infection, so helping repair and protect the body. Mature types are going to be these 5: loose, dense, cartilage, bone, and liquid. So loose, a lot more ground substance going to be found here, so kind of makes you think of not quite as tightly packed, but this is more of the packing material, so kind of like the peanuts in a package. There's going to be a lot of it there, but it's not very tightly packed. There's still a lot of wiggle room in there. Dense, on the other hand, you're going to have tightly packed and a lot of high numbers of collagen and elastic fibers. So this is going to be more closely arranged to where you're actually going to see more of a pattern. And then cartilage, again, supporting and creating shock absorption for the body, mostly in joints. And then bone, it's bone, found in the skeletal system. And then liquid, mostly blood and lymph when we talk about that. So the loose connective tissue types: areolar tissue, This is the open framework. So this is where you do have a lot of ground substance. There's not a lot of fibers here in the way, but they are there to allow for flexibility, but maintaining the shape and allowing for support. So areolar tissue, you're going to see a lot of blood vessels moving through and a lot of nerve supply. This is where you're going to think of the subcutaneous layer, so under the skin. Adipose tissue, these are going to contain adipocytes, which are fat cells. Fat cells or adipocytes are going to allow for energy storage or protection around a lot of organs that we'll see later on. So energy storage and protective measures. Okay, reticular tissue, this is where those reticular fibers come in. These are creating, this reticular tissue is creating the majority of the substance of some of the organs that we'll see. So the spleen, the liver, and when we get the lab, you'll kind of see where they get that type of makeup from. It's almost like a sponge. Okay, so here is a look at those. Areolar at the top, adipose, and then reticular tissue. All right, dense connective tissue. We have regular and irregular. So regular makes you think of a pattern. So this is going to be tightly packed, parallel collagen fibers. Think of tendons, ligaments, aponeurosis, which is more of a sheet of a tendon or ligament. Okay, so these fibers are going to be very well arranged, creating a particular purpose. Okay, dense irregular connective tissue, more of interwoven network of collagen fibers. So kind of like a mesh almost. And we'll see this in the dermis under the skin. So this is going to again create a nice framework for allowing the support of the skin as well as movement. And then periosteum. So periosteum is going to be the wrapping around bones, and we'll talk about that in a little while. So here is a look at these. The regular and irregular. Cartilage tissue, we've got three types: hyaline, fibrocartilage, and elastic. Hyaline is glass-like, so it's very durable, but creates a smooth surface wherever it is. We see this at the end of long bones, creating a nice smooth surface for joint movement. Fibrocartilage, on the other hand, this is support and helping join structures together, creating strength and rigidity. So the IVDs, or intervertebral discs, found between the vertebra and the spine. Think of those whenever you think of fibrocartilage. Nice thick disc there of cartilage, creating a lot of strength and support, as well as a lot of shock absorption. Elastic cartilage. Think of your ear. So the external part of your ear, the auricle or auricle. So this is going to create a lot of elasticity, yet helping maintain shape. So kind of like a rubber band. Bone tissue. We've got two types: compact, spongy. It's exactly what it sounds like. Compact, you're going to see the different material found within there. A lot of calcium and phosphorus packed nice and tight together, creating a consistent type of shape, which is going to be an osteon. We'll see those in a following chapter, chapter 6. You're going to have lamellae, lacunae, canaliculi, and a central canal in each of these osteons. Okay, spongy bone. We have all the same substances or structures found within the spongy bone or the trabecular bone, except they are not arranged in osteons. So as we'll see, osteons, they create a concentric ring. Kind of looks like a tree if you were to cut a tree down. Spongy bone looks more like a webbed cave. So a lot of different structures, just more kind of like a cavern rather than a nice solid piece of bone. But this is where we will see red bone marrow, where blood cells will be produced. Speaking of blood, liquid connective tissue. The blood and lymph are going to be found in this type. So blood, this is going to be the part of the liquid connective tissue in the cardiovascular system, obviously, moving red blood cells and white blood cells, as well as platelets where they're needed. And then lymph is going to be in the lymphatic vessels, moving lymph around. Again, mostly concerned about your immune system as well as moving triglycerides around, but we'll talk more about that later. Okay, as well as blood, the blood plasma is actually considered the extracellular matrix in blood. Okay, all right, so membranes in the body. These are flat sheets of pliable tissue, and they're going to be covering body part. So epithelial membranes. So we've got three different types of epithelial membranes. We've got mucous, serous, and cutaneous. We have spoke about serous already. But mucous membranes, the mucus is going to help moisten surfaces of cavities. So think of your oral cavity, your airways. This is where we're going to see these. Serous membrane, on the other hand, lining the internal cavities, so such as the abdominal cavity, the thoracic cavity. Cutaneous membrane, this is the skin. Okay, we are covering the body surface with the cutaneous membrane, plain and simple. Synovial membranes, this is the second type of membrane found in the body. We line joint cavities, and this is where we're going to have synovial fluid produced. So in joints such as knee, elbow, shoulder, hips, and we'll talk about those later on. So here is a few quick examples of those. Mucous membranes, you'll see it is a, can anybody guess? Simple columnar epithelium. We have one layer of cells shaped as columns. In between these, they are kind of specialized columnar cells, and they are goblet cells. So they are producing mucus that moves to the surface of the epithelium, creating that mucous membrane. Okay, serous membrane, again, we've got those two layers, parietal and visceral layer, helping with avoiding friction. And then skin, or your cutaneous membrane, is consisted of the epidermis and dermis. We'll talk about that in the next chapter. And then synovial membranes. We have synovial fluid being produced from these membranes, helping cushion and support the joints. Alright, muscular tissue. We do not cover it a lot in this chapter because in a few we will see this later on. Alright, consistent of fibers that provide motion and maintain posture and produce heat. So skeletal muscle, cardiac muscle, smooth muscle. The difference between these, as far as this chapter is concerned, that I want you to know, skeletal muscle is voluntary. That means we can choose to use this type of tissue. Cardiac muscle and smooth muscle, thank goodness it is involuntary, because I do not want to have to worry about when my heart is going to beat next. Okay, nervous tissue, we have two kinds, neurons, neuroglia. The biggest part that I need you to know for this chapter is going to be neurons are the conductive type. They will actually be sending the signals throughout the body. Neuroglia are non-conductive. They help support and protect the neurons. Alright, so from here it's just a little bit about tissue repair and aging. Not a whole lot of test material here, but it is good to know. Alright, so from here, that is the end of chapter 4, and I will see you for chapter 5.